Pete Carroll will be a Coach of the Year nominee.
And you know what? It's sad to say that that's going to be Cap because no matter what Pete Carroll does, they're not going to show him the love that he deserves. That's just the life of Pete Carroll in the NFL, the life of just being up here in the Northwest. It's not going to be because he's not deserving of it. He's going to be deserving of it. He was deserving of it this year, and Daboll got it for doing dang near the same thing that he did, yet Pete Carroll did a bit more. So, no, it's going to be off of hate. It's going to be off of bias. It's not going to be because he doesn't deserve it. It's going to be because he's going to be overlooked once again. Now they're going to say, well, you already had your quarterback. It's Geno. Yeah. What was the love last year for Geno?
That's what it's going to be.
You already got your quarterback.
What it's going to be is it's going to be Frank Reich because the Colts are going to all of a sudden be really good. And people are, well, I don't know. I mean, we haven't heard like stellar things about Anthony Richardson at camp, but I bet Frank Reich will be in that.
You guys have done well in the last 2 drafts. That's why. Yeah. Why do you think?
Yeah.
Why do you think? Because Pete is the head of all of this.
Flipping it, since we're done with our factor Cap answers, flipping it on this one, you said that's Cap. What would it take for that to be fact? What would Pete Carroll need to do? What would the Seahawks need to do for Pete Carroll to legitimately be a real nominee for Coach of the Year? Not like we think we should, but like he is a nominee the way that Sirianni was a nominee, Daboll was a nominee.
It's a regular season award, so you can't count the playoffs.
Yeah.
So he'd have to win the division. You win the division, all right, because you got the 49ers over there who are, God's gift to football around these parts apparently. You win the division, he gets it.
You want to know what I think low-key is going to have to happen too? Because I think Coach of the Year is sometimes built on narrative as well. I am just thinking of this right now. I haven't thought it through to figure out whether I actually believe it. I think that you have to win the division, and also Russell Wilson has to continue to struggle.
Ooh.
Because your legacy will forever be tied to his. And so in addition to winning the division, it looks like you as an organization made a choice that got you further than you had in years.
You're tapping in to the subconscious. Like these people
I'm
who
thinking
are
with my
voting
third
for
eye.
this, they're like, hey, Russell's struggling.
Because that's part of it. That's part of the story. It's like, what do you have in your corner, right? For Daboll, it was being in New York. For Sirianni, it was going from, a kind of a weak wild card to like almost wire to wire, really dominant #1 seed. And so what's the story? It's not just like make the playoffs. What's the story that you have? Okay. The story for Pete is going to have to be,
I'll throw
I moved on and I'm better and I'm the answer. It's not Russ. I won.
And I'm going to throw something else on that.
Yeah.
And Geno goes to the Pro Bowl again.
Yeah. Yep.
Then there's no doubt.
Because it's going to have
division,
to be you.
Russell struggles. Geno goes to the Pro Bowl again.
Because what is Carroll proving? What's Carroll's story? It's the same thing Belichick faced. And I know that Tom Brady, I'm not comparing Tom and Russ. What I'm doing is saying that there are often coaches in quarterback duos where you're like, where's the credit go? A lot of people thought Russ is the reason you were successful. Carroll is old. He's past his prime, whatever. Like there were all these critiques. You get Coach of the Year as a nominee if you succeed in spite of him being here. And not only that, but you go further.
All right. Now you got me thinking.
Yeah, now I'm getting fired up.
But is he more connected to Russ? Because Russ has been connected to the Legion. They say only reason why Russ was successful was because of the Legion.
That's how Russ separates his legacy. Their legacies are forever intertwined.
You don't think Pete's legacy is intertwined to the Legion of Boom? You don't think?
I just think there's no way to prove that now. So the only way that you continue with that story is for him to find another elite secondary and for them to be like, oh, Pete is a great defensive mind.
They got one.
And he crafted so much of this.
Now.
Yeah, well, it's not Legion of Boom, though.
It's not. But I'm interested. I'm bouncing everywhere.
I know. I love this conversation.
But I'm interested in
we can stay with it for a few minutes.
Defense. Because he has an opportunity.
Let's do this instead.
All right, let's do that. He has an opportunity right now. Right, you got 2 safeties. You got Quandre Pro Bowler, Jamal Pro Bowler. You got 2 corners. You got Tariq, and you have Witherspoon with Mike Jackson over there. This secondary is built a bit differently. You got the Legion of Boom. Now, I've heard Texas, and the Legion of Zoom over there. If Pete is able to create a secondary, not like he did with the Legion of Boom, but a secondary that has its own identity and that is dominant, what does that do for Pete Carroll's legacy? Again, and we're talking about this year, that secondary comes out and balls out. Again, that's another reason for him to be a nominee for Coach of the Year. He's changed his defense because it's a different looking defense, right? And you have a great secondary. You bring back Geno. He goes to the Pro Bowl. I mean, what else does Pete have to do? He has to win a Super Bowl, I guess. Hasn't done in a while. But what else does he have to do to show that he's able to change with the times?
Separate himself from the great pieces. So if your success is, oh, you had Russ, you had the Legion of Boom, recreate success without those things.
That's what he's doing, right?
So he has not been able to. And again, I think that this is a very complex issue. I think that their lack of ability to recreate the elite defense they had is also in part because they have not had the draft capital other teams had. Now, you have wasted some draft capital. If the Jamal Adams trade never pans out, you sent 2 first-rounders, one of whom became an offensive rookie of the year over with New York and Garrett Wilson. You haven't drafted, unless I'm mistaken, a Pro Bowl defensive lineman. And I know that I make that sound like it's just something everyone should do. But if your bread and butter is like, we make great defenses and this is how we want to win, you haven't been able to do that. But this is another thing, too. If this defense can become elite, it doesn't have to be historically great the way the Legion of Boom was. But outside of Witherspoon, you can't point to all these pieces and say that that just fell to them. Quandre was a midseason trade for a 5th-round pick from Detroit. And Detroit had moved on from him and given up, and clearly they didn't value him the way that they should have. He was a team captain, and they moved on. Thanks, Matt Patricia.
Gracias.
Tariq was a 5th-round pick, who everyone thought was too raw. They thought, oh, yeah, take a chance on him, take a flyer, whatever. There's no way. Now, Witherspoon is 5th overall, but you took a risk taking him when you could have gotten Jalen Carter. You also took a risk making that trade for Jamal. So if Jamal pays off, it's like, yeah, sure, Jamal was a 6th overall pick, but man, that was a swing to get him here. Like, that is credit for you.
All right, you talk about all those moves.
Yeah.
All right, and Pete Carroll has a lot to do with that. You got to throw Schneider in for GM of the year, too, executive of the year.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And those are 2 things that both these guys have been overlooked every single year. You make all those moves that you just mentioned, right? And obviously Pete Carroll has a big hand in that. But it's the tandem of Pete Carroll and John Schneider. Has there ever been a coach of the year and executive of the year the same year on the same team?
No, I don't know. Sirianni was nominated, didn't win. I believe Roseman won it for Philadelphia this year. So you had a nominee and a winner. Did the Colts do this? I need to think about whether the Colts did it when Chris Ballard got it. I can't quite remember. I don't know off the top of my head. But for that to happen, you would need to not just win your division. I think you need to get back to a Super Bowl.